It says it's now streaming live on Facebook. We're all the way live here. No pressure. Yay. So I am so excited to talk with you today. I know we were just chatting up here for a few. I'm like, we gotta start this thing and go live while people are waiting. So hi to everyone that is joining right now, whether it's on Zoom or in Facebook. And also most of you who probably are joining during the replay. We're excited and happy to have you here. It is a big day. We have the amazing, the incredible, the unbelievable Dr. J. How are you?
I'm really doing well, thanks.
And you know what's funny in this world, we were talking about technology before we jumped on and went live here. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, but it's happening. But one of the good things that I can think of is that we actually met through Facebook. That's where we first connected, right?
It was, exactly. I probably, like a lot of our parents that might be joining us tonight, was also having difficulty reaching my own teenager. And people may say that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. Kids love you. You know, you've been a teacher, you've been a principal, you've been a superintendent, you took those college kids when you were a college professor under your wing. You know, there hasn't been any kid that you haven't been able to reach until it came to my own.
Isn't that the craziest?
The irony of it all, it's never lost on me that people used to beg me to take their kids to raise because they were always so good for me and loved me so much, and that I was unable to connect and reach my own biological child was a challenge that I'm not sure I was really equipped for, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah. And I think that is such a common thing. So if you're someone out there that you're having trouble connecting with your moody teenager or the teenager that just doesn't want to listen, well, you're in luck. You're going to hear Dr. J's story. And that's what we actually specialize in because we know that. And that's why we really believe the old adage that it takes a village to raise a child. And sometimes your kids just don't want to hear it from you. And it's nothing that you could do about it. You've done everything you can. You loved on them. You spent the time. You built the trust. But it's just like, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Dr. J. I was in 7th grade. I was going to Shombar Middle School in Ketchikan, Alaska. And, you know, my whole story, I'd take the boat to school in the mornings. And on this one day, I remember I was walking with my dad along the sidewalk there. And, you know, my dad he was funny. He'd teach me like, you know, walk on the uneven part of the sidewalk because that's going to strengthen your ankles. And then you're going to, you know, be stronger for basketball and soccer and baseball sports. So everything was always like a workout and a lesson. But I remember kind of telling him to like back off a little bit. And I told him in the 7th grade, I said, you're not my best friend anymore. It was the quote that, you know, you're my dad and it's been a good run, but you're not my best friend anymore. And I was a kid just talking, probably not knowing how much that was going to hurt his feelings. And it did, because he still talks about it to this day. And he's 77 now. So, but that was that point of like, there comes a certain point where it's like, hey, it's not cool to be around mom and dad. I don't want to hear it from you, or at least around other kids. Don't drop me off around the block. I'll walk up to the school. You know, I don't need everyone to see. Don't wave. Don't tell me you love me in front of everyone and embarrass me. And that's part of the challenge. So I'm just.
It is. But part of that, Jesse, I think that we have to acknowledge, and Lindsay does such a great job when she speaks to parents and me. She was a godsend in so many different ways. But she said, you know, you have to remember that part of growing up is that preparation to lead, that independence. And when these kiddos push back, that we have to remind ourselves that's their job right now. At this season of their life, they are literally hardwired, and it's necessary for them to begin pushing back.
Yeah.
That's okay if you just recognize that it's a normal part of development.
And a good thing.
That there are healthier ways to do it, you know, obviously to cause as minimal damage as possible. But all in all, I can still hear Lindsay in my head saying, but Jessica, that's their job.
Yeah.
He was right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So brilliant.
Yeah, and that's good. That's good to be questioning things and figuring them out for yourself and starting to, because I remember, as I was a young adult being like, well, why do I believe this? Why
Right,
do I like Republican or Democrat? Like why
right.
do I feel this way about these certain issues in the world? And so much of it is we accept what our parents said, or we just reject everything because they're mom and dad. So it's like whatever they think, we're gonna go the extreme
Exact opposite.
opposite. And it's that quote that I love of you want to be preparing your child for the road ahead, as opposed to going ahead of them and clearing out the road and trying to prepare that road for them. That's your role as a parent, is to have them, not bubble wrap them, not put them in that I think a lot of times with, you have the crosses in the background there, and I went
I do.
to lots of Christian schools and graduated from a Christian college, is a lot of time like it was like putting a kid in a room that with the padded walls, and it's like you're protecting them from the outside world because you want them to live a good life and not be corrupted, when really we're training you to go out into that world and be a light and be someone that is positively influencing other people, and hopefully doing it through your actions and your example more so than your words even, which that's a whole other path we could go down. So
True. But
yeah,
but so much of that relates to the topic of trust, Jesse. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head.
yeah,
Um, because I mean, basically there's four elements of trust that you have to break down.
mm,
And so much of that you just talked about. One of them is integrity.
yeah,
One of them is your intent,
okay.
your motives and your agenda. One of them is your capabilities, like what skills do you even have? I mean, you do not want to play basketball with me. I will not inspire trust. I will trust you not to play basketball with me.
Yeah, okay. Deal.
And then the last one is results. So you have those four core
Okay.
elements when it comes down to trust. And those four have to be present in some form or fashion in order to have a really solid, trusting relationship.
And that's such a tough one because so many kids and parents, it's just families. Like even like I learned later in life, like the families that you thought were, the ones that had it all together and they got the perfect family, they show up and they're all dressed nice. Like behind closed doors, it can be a whole different story. And
Exactly.
I think from the outside, my family seems like that to a lot of people, like, oh, good, nice people to get along. And
Yeah.
there's all sorts of craziness going on in our home. And that's just the nature of being around people, being around family, and getting through this thing we call life together.
So
Um,
true.
and
And
so
those are really some of the most powerful relationships that you create is within that family unit. And so much of what you learn in that family unit with regard to integrity, with regard to trust, with regard to honesty, all of those kind of things are essentially built from that interior family unit. And so it has a lot more impact, I think, than we care to admit.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's when they talk about different privileges, and that's such a popular thing for people, and it gets controversy and all these things. But they say
Yeah.
one of the biggest privileges is having a two-parent household, and if you have
Yes.
that, then the kids have a huge advantage in life
Huge.
for seeing a relationship modeled, hopefully successfully,
Yes.
if it's a good
Yes.
relationship.
Well,
It
or
a lot of other things as well.
at
Yeah.
least honestly, and with integrity, because there's going to be conflict regardless in your family, regardless of what that looks like. I think the key is that you deal with it openly, honestly, with transparency. If something's going on in our house, I'll be the first one, Kevin and I will sit Maddie down and we'll say, hey, this is what's going on. And we want to have a conversation about it. And if you heard us screaming, let us tell you what that's about. So we can bring you in, because the more information they have, not too much, but the better they feel, the more confident they feel, the more at ease, nothing's changed. We still love each other.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah, if they don't have
those
those,
things
they
are
don't have those
important.
answers. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, well, wait, are mom and dad getting a divorce? Like what's going,
Right.
like you start to go to the worst case scenario. I totally
Always.
feel you on that.
Always. Your mind will always go to the worst case scenario.
Yeah. Well,
So
Dr. J, oh, go ahead.
I think one of the most important things, obviously, too, when you're talking about issues of trust, is that consistency.
Yeah.
And so one of the best things I think we can do as parents, and it took me a while to kind of come to that point, is be consistent, because otherwise you leave them to guess. It increases their anxiety. They're nervous all the time, but that real sense of consistency and something that they can depend on, which I
Yeah.
think is the importance personally of establishing like good routines and things like that in the
Yep.
home. There are things that the younger person, the child, the young teen can cling to, that gives them that sense of safety and security. So
Yeah. Yeah.
consistency is critical.
Having some certainty, whether it's, hey, we do dinner at this time, or we have
Right.
game night on this day of the week,
Right.
or we watch this show together and it's our
Right.
treat. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. There's something.
Well,
And as long as those things are occurring, then they know it's okay.
yeah. And you hear that with the kids that end up a lot of times in the system, or having problems, or going down the wrong path that we don't want for them. It's just that chaos at home where
Yeah.
they don't know what's going on.
Yes.
So they're looking for some form of acceptance, whether it's
Right.
a strong group of friends at school, or gangs, or different things, depending on where you're at in the world. Before we go too far down this path, though, I'm just so excited. You have such a passion for helping young people. You dedicated your life to this, and that's what I got so excited when I met you and we had our first conversation on the
Yes.
phone. I remember where I was, we were talking, and I just wanted to pick your brain and be able to, have you be able to share these types of things to help so many other parents, teachers, principals, people going through life and trying to figure it out. And that's one thing that I've learned from everything going on in my own life and experiences. It's like, oh, you think, just like the family that has it all together, you think the people that are successful or on TV, or in the neighborhood, whatever it is, you think they got it all together, but everyone's just trying to do their best and figure it out. And some people are really good at wearing that mask
They are.
and faking it and showing that everything. And sometimes those people are the ones going through the craziest things. And you're just like,
Yeah.
blown away with that. So I was wondering if you would just mind sharing kind of your background in education, just,
Sure.
a short thing of how you got to be where you are now,
Okay.
and what you're looking to do.
Well, for the early part of my career, I thought it was pretty simple. I became a special education teacher and taught children with special needs, and then started a master's degree in leadership. Being an advocate for students with special needs, I saw a real need for that in administration levels. And I thought if I could become a principal, I could have a larger voice to advocate for these children.
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot about the, I guess, quote unquote, regular classroom experience. So I went and taught a couple of years in 5th grade, and I loved that too. And then I guess 4.5 years after I started teaching, I became an assistant principal and finished up my master's in leadership, mid-management, school stuff. And I was an assistant principal, had a wonderful mentor. The importance of mentoring, I know, Jesse, that's near and dear. Find a mentor, find somebody that you can learn from.
Yep.
And he was a phenomenal man. Was he the best principal in the world? No. Was he the smartest man in the world? No. Did he have the biggest heart? And was he a man of integrity? And was he a man with clear purpose? Absolutely. He would make a difference in the lives of families and children, and you never once doubted that. He lived that every day. And he was an amazing role model for me. And so I decided that I could run my own school. So I applied for principal jobs. You're young, 30 something. What's next? So I ended up getting a very small school in rural Texas, Anderson Shiro Consolidated ISD. Had 232 elementary kids in my whole school. It's so small.
Yeah.
By Alaska standards, but
no, that's small. That's small.
Okay. It was really small, a nice little German Catholic community right outside College Station where A&M is
Mm-hmm.
in Texas. And so, and it was fun. In the course of that, I decided that there was still much I didn't know that I wanted to know.
Yeah.
I decided to go back for my doctorate degree. I just thought the more information I had, the better I could help.
Yeah.
And it was definitely, I mean, it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it. So as a principal, going to get my doctorate at night, and at that point in time had a 2-year-old at home. So it was, I don't recall sleeping much for several years.
Yeah.
Kind of survival mode.
A lot going on.
Yeah, so I went from that little 1A school, and that's how we classify schools with low population, to a larger 4A school, which had more money and more prestige. And so I went and became a principal in Willis, Texas, which is just north of Houston, finished up my doctorate degree. And then my university said, we want you to come work here. I had never thought about going into higher education. But I had loved my time in the doctoral program. And I thought, well, what an interesting opportunity. So I became like, a clinical professor, and eventually was promoted to be a compliance coordinator for
Okay.
accreditation purposes.
Okay.
It was probably my least favorite job because it took me away from the kids.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Detail oriented, so I thrived, but it wasn't really my passion. And I applied eventually to come back home, which is the Midland, Odessa area, and was offered a job at the University of Texas Permian Basin, where I ran the exact program that I had gotten my master's under. I became the department chair and the program coordinator for that program, kind of came back home and did that for, I guess, close to 11 years, 10 and a half years, and then retired to take care of my first grandbaby.
Mm.
Because I had the luxury to do that. Now, that sounds like a picture perfect life, but there's a lot that went on in the background. I think we all have that.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of them was that I was struggling at home with, you know, a teenager now, young child. It probably started about 5th grade. Lots of self-confidence issues, anxiety, attention deficit. They called was oppositional defiant disorder.
Yeah. ODD.
Labels, the ODD,
Mm-hmm.
lots of labels. And the funny thing is, I was home more than ever, which I thought would make things better. And that wasn't helping either. Get through goodness, everything from suicide attempts to not eating. I mean, literally anything that she could do, cutting, anything she could do to hurt herself. We lived through. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. I was just at a loss. So it really caused me, though, I think, to dig into becoming a better parent and wanting to help others. I share my story with everyone I can, because I think because of that facade, Jesse, that you talk about, everybody assumed that I had it all together. I mean, accomplished researcher, accomplished author, you know, president of the faculty senate, chair of the graduate council, all these huge titles.
Yeah.
Fellow, I mean, if there was any title at that university, I had it or had won it. And you know, a lot of people didn't know that, you know, at home I had a child who did not want to live, and I was powerless to do anything about that. And they're like, oh, but you know, you have a PhD, you've worked with children your whole life, everyone loves you, how can that be? It doesn't matter. So I think, you know, it's important for us to remember to never really judge a book by its cover. You're right. There's often so much going on behind the scenes and what we're not privy to, that I've gotten to the point in my life where I just pretty much give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I think we could all definitely use it. And,
You
and,
could.
and Dr. J, it's like so many people I think will be able to relate to what you're saying, because we hear it every day with the
Mhm.
parents that we're talking to right here in this group. And I feel like these parents care more than the average parent, the people that are going to be watching
Yes.
this, not to say, people care less or more, but they're here. And that's the first step, is showing that you care, like you're trying to find solutions. Like you said, you've tried different things, whether it's counseling at
Right.
school or therapy or talking, grounding, when it comes to like the self-harm and some of the things you're sharing for that. I mean, that's a lot of kids right now, but also it might just be a lack of motivation, or just not wanting to connect with their family and only wanting to be plugged into their phone or video games or online social media. And so there's so many different ways that kids can be struggling today.
Yes.
And like we were talking about before we went live, of having something in your pocket, that can be with you all the time, making you feel less about yourself or distracting you and not allowing you to build up skills and put time into different things and
Right.
connect with people in person. But I think,
Yeah, I think we call it the huge time suck.
yeah, yeah.
It really is.
What's the next thing that's going to make me laugh or make me mad?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so for you, what was kind of twofold. I'll come back to your mentor. I want to talk about him
Okay.
well, but for you turning this around, and I'm not setting you up to say like it was us finding each other and all those things, but what are some things that you found along the way that helped you combat some of these issues when you felt like you were trying and it wasn't working, and maybe it was going in a direction that you didn't think was positive? Like, what are some of the things that opened your eyes or started to help turn that around?
Really, like lots of things. So, and neither here nor there, you and Lindsay were and still are a huge resource. The relationship that Maddie has with Lindsay is very treasured in our house,
Yeah.
and
And
that's special.
and a lot of people, we get that, like Mother's Day, those different days, checking in with their coach, and in a lot of cases it's Lindsay. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
And it's true, and that was phenomenal. I think at the right time, this curriculum was being presented to her. She had the group outlet that she could just let go in, and she didn't hold back. As you know too well, she was very open and can be vocal in those meetings. And then having the one-on-one support from Lindsay was really good. I think also the fact that her dad and I never gave up. I think, and it's hard.
Love that.
Man, if you're a parent out there and you're on the edge and you're like, I can't do this anymore, I don't have it in me, dig just a little deeper, because I promise it will come. It just really stretches you to your limits.
100%. I love that. It reminds me of you've seen probably like the cartoon, and there's the miner who's going, you could see the hole that he's dug, and he's like this far from hitting it one more time and reaching the goal. And there's one, and they got really far and they turned around, they're heading back. And the other one, he's still going, and he's going to reach that goal.
Right.
Because it is so exhausting. That's one of the biggest things. Like, they're looking for, a lot of parents, and maybe this is you if you're watching this, are looking for help for their kid, but it's also relief for them, because if your kid's struggling, there isn't anything in the world that you wouldn't give to be able to help them. Just like if you are sick, there isn't anything you wouldn't trade, no amount of money, no nothing, to have that one thing. You just want your health. And and so that's such a powerful thing of just don't give up, because what happens is it starts to exhaust you, and it starts to mess up your mental health as a parent and your relationship with your other kids or your significant other. And it's this spiral of like, well, I just got to get away.
And extended family.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because you talk about how like my parents would have handled that situation. So they see her and they're like, she just needs to be whipped. And you're like, We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
I mean, I
different,
know some people do. There's no judgment, but I don't personally.
yeah,
Anyway,
it's
but
a changed world for
fix
sure.
all this, if you would just, everybody's an armchair quarterback,
Yeah, everyone's got their 2 cents on it.
close extended family. So
Yeah,
my brother and his wife would have advice, and my parents would have advice, and close aunts and cousins, and everybody had an opinion. So it can damage some of those relationships as well.
yeah, it's when I was in entertainment doing that more full time, it would be like my friends that were these actors on these Nickelodeon shows, they'd be like, yeah, everyone comes up to me, every mom or dad or just random person has like career advice, where we kind of like all feel like, well, like, this is what I think you should do. Like, what do you base this off of? And same thing with parenting. Everyone thinks even if they're just the uncle or the cousin, or you're like, you don't even have kids. Like,
Right.
yeah, what do you know about this, right? And
It's the same thing. Parents used to come into my schools and tell me how to run schools. And I'm like, I can have a doctorate degree in this. And they're like, well, I was a student once. And I'm like, yeah, it's
not the same. Yeah, it's not the same. I watched football, I should be able to tell
right.
Tom
Exactly.
Brady what to do.
Sure. I'll go coach the team.
So I love that. And that's part of how our program came together,
Yes.
was seeing all the frustration that kids
Yes.
and parents are having from going to therapists. And again, we
Yes.
work with therapists, we work with awesome therapists.
Absolutely.
Therapy, but
I think everybody should be in therapy.
agreed. I think we all need it. And
Yes.
usually these turn into my therapy session live.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You're like, okay, wait, we need to stop. This isn't me getting help here. But having that community, what we found was a lot of kids don't want to go into this thing. There are kids that do love it, but most of them don't want to go and be asked a bunch of questions sitting on this couch and feeling like they're pressured. But if we can make it fun, if we can be their friends, their coaches, and also have that rapport and trust built, then we're working with you, the parent, to be like, all right, well, what do you see at home? Here's what we're seeing here. They're fine. Like, they're faking the funk with you because they know that you'll give into it and those types of things.
Right.
Working as that team, but that building that trust is such a big one.
Yes.
And we do that through coaching, right? So
Right.
I know you know this, but more so us developing a relationship, being open and being vulnerable.
Yes.
So for you, I know trust was one of the things we wanted to talk about today. And I was writing these things down: integrity, intent, capabilities, results. If I'm a parent and I feel like there's some trust issues with me and my teenager or my teenagers, do you have any like practical advice of how to maybe go about repairing that trust and opening? It sounds like opening that communication is a huge piece of that, but
It is.
what would you
It
say?
is. And it's really interesting that you hit on the theme of vulnerability, Jesse, because I think that is so huge. Brene Brown does some great work with vulnerability and shame.
Yeah.
I love everything she writes. She is a genius to me.
Yeah, she's great.
The work that I ground my trust content on is Stephen Covey's work, The Speed of Trust, which is actually, parents, like a business book. It's really, if you have to find it at the library, it would be in the business section. And you're thinking, why are we getting parenting advice from the business section? Well, there's been a lot of money spent on research to make money, but it doesn't mean we can't use it in social science in order to make us better people and more equipped as well.
Yeah.
I always love finding those connections because, you read a book like The Speed of Trust, and it's not just that it helps you professionally, but it helps you in your personal life. I think that that's a win-win. But I do think that one thing that we probably don't focus enough on is that the concept of trust is probably highly underrated in every aspect of our life, because it is, when you think about it, we can't go on the streets in our cars if we didn't have trust for other mankind.
Yeah.
I mean, it is as fundamental as as that. We couldn't live on a street with neighbors if there wasn't some level of societal trust. It's so
Critical.
woven
Yeah.
into aspect of our lives that I think we really underestimate its importance. I think that it literally can alter the trajectory and the outcome of every future moment of our lives. Trust alone. Trust is confidence. Trust equals confidence. Distrust equals suspicion. What happens is when trust is part of your relationship with a person, you can make those little tiny mistakes. And the person gives you the benefit of the doubt. And they say, you know, it's okay because I know I trust them. But if distrust is prevalent in your household and in that relationship, then even the smallest error or mistake can blow totally out of proportion and be entirely misinterpreted.
So here's a question for you, and I don't know if you'll have an answer, but I think I know what your answer will be. But if trust is broken, and I may be asking again, turns into Jesse's therapy session. Trust is broken in a relationship. Can it ever be repaired and restored back to having full trust in someone?
Could it be done? Yes. I firmly believe you have two mature, well-mannered adults that are both committed to the same thing and are willing to put in the time and the effort to repair it. Absolutely. I think it can be done. Do I think it can be done easily? Absolutely not.
It's a lot of work.
It's so precious. And as parents, we have to really guard ourselves and always try to be worthy of their trust, to be trustworthy parents, because once that's broken, it's so hard, and it has to be both parties that restore it. One can't restore it alone. And when you're dealing with a teenager, they may not want to restore it, and then that opportunity is kind of lost. So can it happen? Sure, absolutely. I just think it's a lot of work, which is why you just try to keep as much trust as you can on the front end, so that you're not trying to make repairs on the back end, because that's a lot harder.
So if you're working to, and I agree, the front end, like that's like, as a speaker, a lot of the people who are my peers and contemporaries, their story is they went off the deep end with drugs and alcohol and had to, hit rock bottom, right? And or they lost an arm, or like, really extreme things where, my story, as you've seen there when we were hanging out in Texas, is, obstacles, underdog, just like everyone here has felt like an underdog. But I had to work hard and make all the right choices just to give myself a shot to make it with the things that I wanted to do with my life. And that's the story that I want other kids to have. I don't want them to have to hit rock bottom. I don't want them to lose relationships and spiral out of control with substance abuse or whatever it is. That's going to hurt them, hurt their future, and hurt their happiness. And so I love that. So what are some things that you can do on the front end to help build? And I feel like it comes to giving kids, like you were saying earlier, the benefit of the doubt in communication. But what are some things on the front end that you can be doing to help have that relationship so that you are able to communicate and those types of things?
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to those 4 cores that we talked about, Jesse. I mean, I think, the first one's integrity. And so in order to have integrity, by function of its definition, you have to have something that you stand for. You have to have something that you believe in.
Yeah.
Only by having that belief can you demonstrate integrity. It's fundamental in the expression of integrity. So you have to stand for it, and you have to stand for it in a way that everyone else knows that you stand for it. So it's almost got to be a profession of what you believe and what you stand for. And, a lot of people call that like their North Star. What is your North Star goal?
Yeah.
I know we were, when I was training principals and school superintendents, I used to ask them all the time, what are your non-negotiables?
Mm.
Your line.
You
Where's
want to hear something crazy? My dad was a logger and carpenter, right? And he used to call it a plumb line. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Yes,
that.
I do know that. My dad
Okay.
was a woodworker.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just different terminology, but the same thing there.
Yes,
I
and the
love it.
little chalk rope that you could pop and get,
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
So
And
integrity.
so I think
Yeah.
integrity is fundamental. And in order to have integrity, you have to be able to believe in something and believe in it so much that you're willing to stand for it.
Mm.
Second one, and I think is probably the most important for me, is intent.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Overlook a lot of things if I know that your basic intent is good. So basically, acting in the best interest of others is a behavior that typically flows out of a caring motive and an agenda that has mutual benefit. So when people believe that we're acting in their best interest, they tend to trust us. When we believe that people are acting in our best interest, we tend to trust them, because anybody that has your interest at heart is deemed trustworthy. That's like a good intent. I mean, the other thing is to make your intent clearly known. And I do that probably more than I should. I will break down the laundry cycle. My intent, Maddie, is for you to have more time to do your algebra homework tonight. So I am going to fold the laundry that's in the dryer. It is not to enable you or get you out of your chores and responsibilities. It is to allow you time tonight to finish your algebra homework.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just break it down and be
Yeah.
which also inspires trust. It's very nice. But I think that's the other thing, is that we really have to be transparent. And in a way that helps keep us accountable too.
Yeah. 100%.
With something you believe in, your intent and what's on your heart, then, and you've made that known, you're accountable for that now. That's a part of you. So, I think that's the other important aspect of really making that public.
100%. Yeah.
The other thing, and you talk about it a lot, Jesse, in the Attitude Advantage program, is coming to everything with an attitude of abundance.
Yeah.
Most important things in life do not have limits. Love is not limitless. Success is not limitless. And we really have to check our attitudes and say, am I operating from a perspective of abundance? Because when you approach people with this mindset, you really acknowledge that love, success, trust, results, I mean, there's no limit. Just because one person's successful doesn't mean that you can't also be successful.
Yeah.
And that mindset's really a choice.
Yeah.
Am I going to lose the spotlight if I share this project with a coworker? Do I believe that I have enough love for everybody, or do I believe that I have to protect it? I mean, it's just, everybody kind of operates from a different mindset. But we really, I think, through that attitude of abundance, demonstrate our integrity and improve our personal intent, and that establishes credibility to help others trust us.
Yeah, it really, when you were talking about earlier, like the vulnerability piece, it's so funny because to so many of us, and maybe this is a guy thing a lot of times as well, is we do see that as such a weakness. When
Yes.
being open and vulnerable, where it really can be your biggest strength to connect with other
Yes.
people and connect with your
Yes.
teenager. So, hey, I
Yes,
feel like I'm failing you, and it breaks my heart to see you struggle with these things, and you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with stress, you're not connecting with friends. I want these things for you more than anything, and I am here to help you, but I feel like I'm not doing my job and I don't know what I'm doing. So how are you hurting? How can I support you? What can I
right,
try? And
right.
putting out there, and that's something that I've taken away from Dr. E as well, is so often
Yes.
like, hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have got mad and said this to you and taken this away or handled this situation.
I said it and I was in the red zone.
Yep, yep. I said it when I was in the red zone, and using your flaws, and being vulnerable to have those be those learning lessons, because that's a constant part of life, is like we talk about, is failing, failing, failing. And if we can turn those
It's
into,
not failing. We're gonna call that refining.
yeah, failing equals refining equals
Refining.
feedback. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Failure is just feedback,
yeah, yeah.
not define you.
Let me ask you this,
Okay.
Jay. Trust,
Yes.
given or earned?
Earned.
Okay, so that's someone who's had their trust broken a few times, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's just healthy. I think that's just healthy.
Yeah.
I think early in my parenting, I was really lousy at establishing healthy boundaries for myself. And I go back to the airplane metaphor that I'm sure everyone's familiar with. Anytime the oxygen drops and the bags drop from the ceiling, you put yours on first so that you can be there to help others. And I think too often as parents, we don't do that and we don't take advantage of that, Jesse. And I was lousy at it. I
Yeah.
was absolutely the world's worst. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything that I wouldn't sacrifice. There wasn't anything that I wouldn't do, to help my kiddos. And that took a toll not only on me, but on them as well.
Yeah.
So that's why I say that trust has to be earned. And it's on a spectrum. I mean, there's people that you trust, that inner circle that knows everything about you. And there's people that you trust socially, collegially, and you know that they're good people, but there's levels, I think, of trust, if I had to define what that would look like for me. And so, obviously it takes a lot less to get into one of those outer levels of the trusting relationship. But it takes a lot to get in those inner circles.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good one. I had awesome opportunity. I got to go and speak at a school that was for autistic kids that were 7th through 12th grade. And when we went and hung out, it was a big event and lots of, thousands of people there. This one was maybe 120 kids.
Right.
And it was so cool to get to do that experience, and it was just so fun. But talking to Laura, who runs that school and all these other schools for kids that are on the spectrum and autistic, I said, what's the one piece of advice that you would have for parents navigating these waters of kids with autism? And her answer was basically what you said: fill your own cup. Do self-care, because you are giving so much and it is so exhausting, a full-time job, being a parent at all, but then also being a parent of a kid that's maybe having other issues and struggles and different challenges, of taking care of yourself, because so many parents are so selfless that they forget, hey, if I don't put that oxygen mask on first, I'm gonna flame out and not be able to be everything that I can be.
Right. And I think that it's something that that many of us are doing very badly. And that doesn't mean
Good intention, though. Back to your intent.
yeah,
Good
right.
intention.
Good intentions, the best of intentions, Jesse. There's no doubt. Parents love their children and they're just doing the best they can. As a principal, I operated through that mantra my entire career. Nobody gets pregnant, has a baby, goes through childbirth, raises it, and says, I wonder how I can mess this up.
Yeah.
It's the best of intentions.
Yeah.
No one ever has a kid and says, oh man, we'll do a little science experiment with this one. I mean, they love it. They care for it. They want nothing but the best. And so, I mean, I've even had to check myself lately because things that I had done my entire parenting life, I recently learned were wrong. And I had to go make apologies to Maddie for that. And I think I might have told you, I might have told Sha, there's lots of us that talk around there, but
Okay.
that I was reading Carol Dweck's book, Mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that one of the things she says in that book is that we've got to stop praising kids for being intelligent.
Mm.
My entire parenting life, I've told my kids how smart they are.
Mm-hmm.
Thought them I was doing this huge favor in building their confidence, and it's the exact opposite. Psychologically, when you tell a kid that they're smart, then in order to be smart, they always have to appear smart. And in order to appear smart, there's no risk taking. There's no new learning. There's no curiosity. All of that is shut down if you're told you're smart. And I was not enabling her to grow and learn and take risks and fail.
Yeah.
Because I had been telling her her entire life how smart she was.
Mm.
Note to parents out there, you want to positively reinforce your kiddos. Tell them that you appreciate their effort.
The effort. Yeah.
How brave they are.
Yeah.
It's a huge risk. And how much you admire their independence and their fortitude, their persistence, their hard work, all of those kind of things. But don't tell them they're smart.
Yeah. The effort. Yeah, that totally makes sense, because then it's like, well, why would I go out of this little box where I might not live up to this thing that I
expectations.
I'm only going to do the thing that I'm good at and nothing else.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a paralysis we see with so many kids today.
Yes.
Is they don't want to try anything because they're like, all right, let me try basketball. And then what do? On their phone, they can go and watch LeBron James' kid. Yeah, they're gonna fail. They can watch LeBron James' son dunking and jumping over people.
Right.
Like, well, I'm never gonna be like that. What am I start? All right, let's try this other thing. And then they go and look at the influencer that's got millions of followers and is better looking than all of us. And they're like, well, I'm never gonna be able to be that. So why ever start? And that totally paralyzes them.
It does. Well, and I think we challenge them so soon now. I know at the end of 8th grade, Maddie had to choose her whole high school graduation track. And she's like, I'm at the end of 8th grade. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. They're like, oh, well, you can do a general studies track, or you can do a science intensive track, or you can do a social science track, or you can do a pre-med nursing track, or you can do an engineering track. And all these classes are kind of geared toward where you might think you want to end up in college as a major in year 12.
Mm.
You know, the pressure.
Yeah, you don't have to have it figured out at 12, 13, 14. It's okay to not know, try things.
Yes, which is why we went with the general studies one, because it's the broad array of all of it. My goodness, child, get a menu, you know. You don't have to have the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I encourage everybody to do that. Give as many experiences as you can and let them fail, and tell them how proud you are of their effort and how brave you think they are, because that ends up, I think, promoting more of that growth and a better trusting relationship in the end than anything else we can do.
Yeah. You know, back to your mentor, what
Carl Perkle.
Shout out to Carl.
Shout out to Carl.
You know, when dealing with speaking and different speakers, one of the things that I've taken away is a lot of times the thing that matters is that people, you've talked about the authenticity and being vulnerable. That's such a big piece,
Yes,
but people can really detect if you mean what you say and
yes,
you care about it and you're passionate. And it's like, I take a
yes.
passionate speaker that really is all in on what they're saying, who maybe doesn't have the best story or isn't the best with words, all those things, but the person who has that passion and is just going for it is going to have a bigger impact, in my opinion, than the person who's up there and has the, you know, the look and dresses the right way and knows the transitions. It's that person that really, really cares. And I felt like that's,
And I'm going to tell you,
yeah,
as a principal, Jesse,
yeah.
that was one rule of thumb when hiring teachers. I could train them to teach. I can teach them pedagogy. I can teach them content. I can teach them classroom management. I can't fix their heart.
Mm.
I always hired for heart.
Oh, I love that.
Could handle the rest.
Yeah, the rest can come.
The rest can come, but I can't fix a heart.
Mm. So when it comes to parenting and
Yes.
finding that heart of wanting to help your child, kind of wrapping this up, what would be your biggest, if you could just share one thing, what would be your best piece of advice? And it could be trust related or not, or just word of encouragement. I feel like you've had so many good little words in here of encouraging people and believing in themselves and taking
Yeah.
care of themselves. But
Yes.
when it comes,
And the most important part, don't give up.
don't give up.
Never stop trying, because no matter what, it is worth it. It is 100% worth it.
Yay. I love it. I appreciate you so much for coming, and
Oh,
I hope,
yeah.
and I will encourage people to you know, you're in this group as well. So
Yes.
to find you if they have,
Reach out, absolutely.
yeah,
Even
and
if you just need a shoulder to cry on or an ear to hear.
yeah, yeah. And I would like to make this announcement to everyone, which I don't think I've made publicly or in here, is that part of what we're doing with you is working on the updated school version of the
Yes.
Student Advantage program. So
Yes.
that's something we're launching and taking out to schools this upcoming year. It's so exciting. And you've come on as our expert in leadership and training for principals and superintendents, as well as with the parents and the students themselves. So we're so excited to have you be on this team and to be on this journey with us. And it has been such a pleasure getting to spend time and get to know you more in person on some of these trips
Yes.
we got to do, but then also
Yes.
long distance and working together. So so excited.
It's been a blessing. And I hope all the parents out there and people who get to see the video are blessed as well, because we're kind of all in this together.
Yay. Yes, absolutely. It takes a village. Back
It
to
does
it.
take a
It takes a
village.
village. All
You
right,
got it.
everybody. Well, I'll leave it
Okay.
with this. If you want to have a conversation with us, if there's stuff going on with your teen or your teenager, anyone who's watching this, you can just comment below on this video or send us a DM or a text message. We're not that hard to find and communicate with. We got an awesome team here of people that want to find out more about what's going on. And if it's something that we can help you with, we'll let you know how we would do that.
Absolutely.
And if it's not, we'll point you in the direction of someone who can. And that's how this beautiful friendship and relationship was born.
Yes,
One of those conversations.
it was. That's
And we've
exactly
come a
where
long
it came
way.
from.
Yeah.
And I would have never guessed how transformational that one conversation would have been to our life, to our family, and to our child. You know, one little conversation can literally change your life.
So I'm so grateful for you guys. I do, Lindsay and I and the rest of the team, we talked and we just feel so grateful and so blessed that this is what we get to do. And the
Yes.
feedback from parents when you're wearing your parent hat from people like you and the kids is just, you know, it makes it so worth all of the work and the effort and, you know, the tough parts of running a business and doing different
Yes.
things. So,
Yeah.
thank you as always for
Thank
your
you.
time. First of many, I think we're going to be doing this. I'd like to make
Yes.
a regular thing with you.
Yes.
So people
Absolutely.
can get their questions in the future, but this was kind of the blasting off, get to know Dr. J and her
That's
story,
right.
her background, and we'll be back
That's it.
for many more.
Yeah, sounds great. I look forward to it. Thank you for letting me be here tonight.
Yes.
like Jesse said, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Well, have a good Sunday and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
All righty.